Now, if you're to ask me, I think they changed Misty's design way too much, and now she looks like her mother in the new Pokemon game. Hello everyone, my name's Stonesy Boy, and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today, we're going to read pages 161 to 183, or chapters 130 to chapter, I don't know, because I can't see the screen right now, chapter 33. So, without further ado, because I don't like wasting time, let's begin. Chapter 30. After their battle in the tunnel, Bobby watches Ben build a wall, cutting across the railway. He knocked a few off the rails loose as a good measure. I would feel bad about messing in somebody's build, he explained, but I'm more certain than ever these people are up to no good. He paused to survey the work, slapping dirt off his hands, and this would make it harder for them to sneak up on us again. Bobby found it difficult to argue. He only hoped that the boy in the minecart wouldn't send a hatchet or flip after them in the other direction. But the tunnel remained empty and quiet as they made their way ever forward. Bobby found it impossible to remain on high alert for long. It was exhausting to strain her ears for signs of pursuit, and it might never come. And her mind kept going back to Ben. He'd been brave in her fight against the zombies, but he'd come to expect that by now, and in a way, bravery was easy when you're in an escapable fight. But what had struck her was he'd put his weapon down. He made himself vulnerable. He let himself be hurt because he'd been determined to protect Johnny. The thought of Johnny might be in collateral damage in the fight had never been acceptable to Ben. Bobby hadn't realized how alone she'd felt until she suddenly realized that she'd a true ally in Ben. Now that you're back there, she told him. Ben puffed out his chest. I was, wasn't I? And that ruined it. Why couldn't he just take a compliment without letting it go straight to his head? Bobby had to keep his ego in check somehow, for both their sakes. Good thing it wasn't spiders, she said. You're weirdly useless around spiders. What about that? What's that about? Ben deflated. Why does it have to be about something? Spiders are scary. I don't know, said Bobby. I mean, they aren't cute, but they're just animals. Although, she grinned, I guess you're afraid of llamas too. Ben scoffed. I am not afraid of llamas, he said. I don't like getting spat on. It's a very common and reasonable personality trait. Yeah, okay, said Bobby. That's sort of my point. You have a rational aversion to the llamas, you can explain it with logic, and he rubbed her chin. Zombies are scary because they're relentless. Endermen are scary because they're unpredictable. What makes spiders scary to you? Fear isn't rational, though, Ben argued. It's the opposite of anything. We should be afraid of pigs. Bobby laughed. Pigs? What's so scary about pigs? Well, it's not much pigs themselves. They're harmless enough, right? But do you know what happens when a pig is struck by lightning? Bobby thought about it. Pork chops? She guessed. Not pork chops, Ben smiled darkly. Remind me to tell you all about that next time we set up camp. It was a short time later when they saw the end of the tunnel. Be careful and quiet, Ben whispered. Bobby nodded in agreement. Johnny growled. Maybe we could tie him up back here, Ben suggested. With Johnny secured to a post, Ben and Bobby crept forward. They could see that the tunnel ended ahead, but the light beyond him was dim, so they couldn't tell what they led to. The rail ended first. There was no minecart in position, ready to be sent down the tunnel and flip a switch. See that lever? It looks like a dead torch, Ben pointed. That's a redstone torch, she whispered. That means the whole rail system is powered. Whoever gets to know their stuff, they might have a whole mining operation going. Suddenly, sounds rang off in the space beyond the tunnel's exit. It started a single mournful groan. Then it grew into nightmarish cacophony. Even Johnny appeared agitated. What was that? Bobby hissed. Not another zombie horde. No, Ben whispered as he crept forward to peer into the chamber beyond the tunnel. I think the horde is undersettling it. The tunnel opened to a vast cavernous space. Not a cave, where there was nothing natural about the space. Its angles were too perfect, its lines were too straight. It looked to Ben as if someone carved out a perfect cube out of the subterranean rock, and then filled the cube with zombies. Hundreds of zombies. More than he could comfortably count. More than he was comfortable looking at. He inched back away from the opening. I've never seen anything like this before, he whispered. Good, said Bobby. I hate to get the impression that this was normal, she shuddered. This is impossible, just an accident, she asked. A spawner that's gone out of control, maybe? Ben shook his head. See the space? It looks constructed, he pointed. There's 2 more tunnels and entrances like this one, and I'll bet those lead to rail tunnels too. And up above, someone's built a little balcony so they can keep an eye on the mobs down below. So someone built this, Bobby said, and they wanted to be full of zombies? But why? I'd like to learn that myself, said Ben, but they're not going that way. Come on. He had a pickaxe. Let's go upstairs. Chapter 31. It was night on the surface and cloudy. It was visibly low and took him a moment to get their bearings. Ben turned in a slow circle to get a sense of the surroundings, and he grasped. A mountain loomed ahead of them. Carved into the side of the mountain was a massive fortress. Look at that, he said. Look, oh, I'm looking, said Bobby. You realize it's built over a zombie pit? Or maybe it's more of a zombie dungeon if it was the basement of a castle. Oh, she smiled. Do you think whoever lives there is locking up and keep people safe? Maybe they're determined to protect nearby villages, like a feudal lord. I love the optimism, said Ben, but something about the ominous tone edifice looming high above us feels a little menacing to me. Johnny growled, and Ben was going to joke of the growl of agreement. Then he realized that Johnny was growling in a specific direction and pulling his lead. What's up with the toothy toddler? Ben asked. Ben slushed him. There's probably somebody over there. I think they're watching us, she whispered. Ben squinted into a gloom. Bobby was right. He could just make out a silhouette up ahead. Hello, we come in peace, he called, and he held up his empty hands, cascading a sideways glance at Johnny, who continued to pull on his lead. He muttered, most of us. The figure made no reply. Bobby tried next. Do you, know anything about who lives here? She lifted her hand and pointed at the fortress, and in doing so, she let Johnny's lead slip over the grass. John didn't hesitate for a moment. He ran forward intent on attacking the stranger. Bobby called for him to come back, her voice cracking with panic. Ben wasn't sure whether he was more concerned that he'd eat somebody or that he'd smacked around and trying. Either way, both ran after him, determined to intercept him before he got into striking distance of the stranger, who remained eerily calm, standing in the ground, and the pint-sized zombie bore down on them. Ben saw as he drew closer, the figure wasn't a person at all. Someone had picked a jack-o'-lantern on top of a hay bale, then fixed wood posts to give the illusion of arms and legs. It's a scarecrow? Benny, said Bobby. It's a trap, said Ben. His warning came too late. The ground disappeared from beneath their feet, and Ben, Bobby, and Johnny plunged off short distance to the bare stone room, dimly lit with a single lantern. A low growl sounded, and Ben said, Do you say that again, Johnny? Ben, said Bobby. That wasn't Johnny. Ben scrambled to his feet and just creature lunged from the shadows. It was a zombie, a full-grown adult zombie that was grasping the hands and open mouth. Ben was getting well and truly sick of zombies. And then, before Ben could even blink, Johnny leapt forward, still free of his lead. The young zombie smashed into the older one, shoving it back before it could fall upon Ben. All right, brother. Good save, said Bobby, and he closed the distance with her sword. She slashed at the hostile mob, stepping back whenever it swiped at her. Johnny tugged his legs, hampering the movement, and Bobby was able to destroy it without taking a single hit. Ben was watching an eerie scene without once having to lift his own sword. You two definitely have a hang of that, Bobby sniffed at the rotten flesh left behind by the fallen zombie, as if considering its suitability for eating, but he snuck out of his tongue and turned away from the disgust. But now they're not so tough, Bobby said, and there's no way one of them, but hundreds of zombies. Ben felt a thrill of dread as he remembered the look below. You think this leads down to a dungeon? He asked, noting a single downward sloping exit of their hole. It must, Bobby said. Zombies fall for the trap and end up in the pit. I bet there are a lot of these traps all over this area. I bet you're right, said Ben. He hit his lip. I should have recognized the trap right away. I fell for something similar back when Logan was training me. Only that trap was way worse than a hole in the ground. He gazed up at the night sky. We can dig or climb right out of here. But if it had been filled with cobwebs, he shuddered. Cobwebs, Bobby asked. So how's about cobwebs? We were able to hack our way out of the ones we stepped in back in Savatown. Webs are like zombies. They're fine at one at a time, said. But when you're on your feet, he leaned against the dirt wall, but followed a stack of cobwebs. They're practically inescapable. Falling doesn't feel like the right word, because you're moving so slowly, but you're fully helplessness. You're stuck in just drifting. I don't understand how this is part of your training, Bobby said. Logan wanted to make a point, Ben explained. It was a noob. He was making all kinds of stupid mistakes, and those mistakes put him at risk. So he wanted to prove a point, Ben sighed. He set a trap, and I fell for it. It was like an endless chasm of webs in the dark. I felt like I was trapped there forever, and then the darkness started to recede, and I realized I was falling right into a pit of lava. Ben shuddered. Every second I was in the web, I slipped closer to lava. I couldn't help any of it. I couldn't do nothing except scream for help over and over again. Bobby put her hands to her mouth. Ben, that's awful. How cruel. Ben shook his head. Logan was making a point. He wouldn't have let anything happen to me. He waited until the last minute. Then he stepped in to save me. All it took was a couple blocks of dirt placed over the lava, and I landed harmlessly on the ground. I still think it's cruel. Maybe, Ben shrugged. But I learned my lesson. It made me a better hero. You've made me a better hero, said Bobby. You taught me a lot. You never resorted to scare tactics and power trips to do it. You didn't think it'd make me feel helpless in order to inspire me. She frowned. I know it's none of my business, she said, but a Logan person sounds like a lousy teacher and a terrible friend and a rotten human being. Well, I guess I don't have anything to compare him with, Ben said sadly. Not a friend front, anyway. You do know, said Bobby, that he placed a hand on his shoulder. Johnny tried to bite at his shoulder, but his teeth clacked harmlessly in the iron armor. Then Ben assumed a gesture of affection. Then Bobby's hand suddenly squeezed. Ben, she said, do you know what this means? What means? That story you just told me. That's why you're afraid of spiders. Her eyes went wide. You associate spiders with webs, and webs was a traumatic experience that made you feel helpless and scared. Ben thought about that. Yeah, you might have a point, he said. On the other hand, he added, shuddering, it could only be their beady little eyes. Bobby opened her mouth to say something, then suddenly stopped, gripping Ben's shoulder more fiercely. She suddenly shoved him back, knocking him prone. What was that for? He cried, and then saw the arrow protruding from the wall. Bobby had shown him the path just in time. I won't move if I was you, said a voice from high above. Ben didn't move, except to look up. Two figures loomed above, peering over the edge of the trapdoor. One of them was reloading his crossbow, and the other brandished a diamond axe in a sneer. Ben recognized them as Low Light, Flip, and Hatchet. What are you doing in our trap? Said Hatchet. Her eyes darted at rotten flesh on the ground. Did you destroy one of our zombies? The boss ain't gonna like that, said Flip, bouncing at his feet. Does your boss want it with zombies? Ben asked. Well, you're so nosy, said Flip, and he took aim. Ben filled over him. Not nosy. Call it professional curiosity. Professional, echoed Hatchet. Sure, said Ben. You say your boss wants zombies? Ben put gently in his lead, and Johnny stepped out of the shadows. Well, we've got a zombie right here. Chapter 32. Whatever Ben was up to, Bobby hated it. Hated it. Every big sister instinct that she had was ringing an alarm. She didn't like those two heavily armed strangers. She didn't like Johnny using as a bargaining chip to meet their boss. And she didn't like the look of the fortress at her approach. Ben had been right. It was far too imposing and inviting. Are those heads? Bobby asked, aghast at the sight of a pair of zombie heads sitting atop us. Welcome to Fort Rot, said Flip. Hatchet chop, chop, she said. Don't fall behind now. Bobby turned to Ben. It was a bad idea, she whispered. He whispered back, don't you trust me? Bobby gave him a long, hard look. I mean, sure, she answered. Wow, Ben said. You really had to think about that for a minute, didn't you? Bobby scoffed and turned away. Trust was an easy word to throw around, but her brother's safety at stake. She had keeping both eyes open. The fortress was carved from the very mountain. It looked solid and imposing, but also very plain. There were no turrets or arched windows, and the entire structure was dull, monotonous, gray. The only exception was a large hanging banner. It was red, and emblazoned upon it was an image of a fearsome black skull with two crossbones. Ben seemed to recognize it, but he didn't say anything about it. As they descended the stone staircase, Bobby saw a wooden porticus remained closed to them. Hey, it's us, said Flip, and he banged against the gate. Open up. We better not have wandered off, grumbled Hatchet. I'm here, piped a voice from the bottom of the porticus. 1 second. The porticus lifted, and Hatchet ducked underneath it as soon as it was open. Flip waved Bobby and the others ahead of him. They entered a sort of courtyard. It was an artillery place, boxy and unadorned, with a manner of workstation bringing from the perimeter. There was a crafting table, a furnace, an anvil, and more. To Bobby, it looked more as someone had taken an entire village, moved everything from the warmth and beauty, shoved it in a single room. Seeing something new, Johnny tried to pull away, but Bobby was in a tight grip on his lead. Also outside Johnny's reach, the boy who had been standing in porticus controls took a few steps back. This is unusual, said the boy. He was smaller than another two, younger in a simple leather armor and no visible weapons. Zombies aren't supposed to come through this way. That's what the tunnels are for. Just twisted boy's helmet around, covering his eyes. We know what the tunnels are for, you nerd. We dug them, didn't we? The boy painstakingly realigned his helmet. Then why? He's a special zombie, Ben said lightly. There's all sorts of tricks. I'm guessing you're not the boss. Bib chortled. That'll be the day. These are observation balconies, said the boy. Should I take them? We'll take them, said Hatchet. You take this, and he handed over a small stack of loot. It's slim pickings out there. I see why the boss wants you to move on. Bobby caught Ben's eye. These had to be people who had been gathering up every available source, and that meant had to have gold. But would they be part of it? Somehow she doubted it. The boy pressed the button, and the porticus dropped back into place in a nearby chest. Don't forget. We won't forget, said Hatchet, clearly annoyed. We stomped over the chest and opened it aggressively and placed a diamond axe inside. Flip did the same with crossbows, then gestured to Bobby and Ben. We'll hold on to ours if that's okay, said Ben. Hatchet gave him a dirty look. That's not okay, she said. Price of admission to see the boss, said Flip. Bobby felt a tangle of anxiety. She didn't like the idea of being defenseless amongst all these strangers. Maybe we ought to meet your boss another time, she suggested. Find neutral territory somewhere. Out there, said Hatchet. It's all Ravager territory as far as the eye can see. And we're the Ravengers, said Flip. That means you're either our guests or you're our trespassers, he glowered at them. Guests leave their weapons out temporarily. Trespassers have their stuff permanently confiscated. Guess it is, Ben said happily. He dropped his bow and sword into the open chest. Bobby glared at him and did the same. Trust me, he mouthed. He resisted the urn to open and stop his foot onto his foot. Were those iron swords? Hatchet chortled. You might as well have been held on to them. We have a hard time cutting wheat with those things. Yeah, well, Bobby said, annoyed. Resources have been hard to come by out there. See? Why, I say, Hatchet said, turning back to the young gatekeeper. Slim pickings. Leaving the boy to catalog the organize their loot, Hatchet and Flip led Bobby to the others up a long, winding staircase with their basic windows. Just empty spaces. Really, looking more like the overworld, it was just too dark outside for Bobby to see much. Inside, an abundance of torches illuminated every corner. Bobby grumbled and swiped at more than one burning torch as they passed. They didn't take a staircase all the way up to the top, instead exiting into a stony hallway aligned with doors. Are these the living quarters? Asked Bobby. She was never in stony silence. Ben leaned over and whispered, Nice place, but the tour leaves something to be desired. A second spiral staircase led down. This one seemed to be interior space, perhaps going right into the center of the fortress. There were no windows either, the staircase or hallway to which it led. This hallway ended up in an open, arched doorway. Their captors paused for it. I'll wait here and keep an eye on them, said Hatchet. You fill them in. And Stout scoffed. I'll wait here until you fill them in. A moment of silent tension passed between them. Bobby half expected them to settle the matter with a fist fight. It was why they were expected to leave their weapons at the door. In the end, Bobby couldn't say what precisely had passed between their stare contests, but only an impasse had settled. Flip broke eye contact, grumbled fine, and stormed through their archway. Ben winked at Bobby. She could almost hear him thinking, watch this. He sat up next to Hatchet and said, You shouldn't let him push you around like that, especially not in front of, guest. Hatchet gave him a dirty look. Mind your own business, she said, and held up his hand in an exaggerated surrender. Throughout all of this, Bobby kept her brother close, with both hands gripped tight on his lead. She watched the strangers with interest, and she feared that slipping her grass again he would attack. Then he wasn't certain, however, his interest might be in his mindless hunger. But she thought there was something else in his eyes, something that was curiosity he used to show around others before he was transformed. He was still in there somewhere. She was only more convinced as the time went on. Flip returned a gesture for him to enter. Bobby let Ben go ahead of her, so she would keep Johnny between them. She gasped and crossed out the hallway into the balcony. It didn't overlook the exterior of the castle. As Bobby had expected, the boy caught the observation balcony after all. But the balcony overlooked the zombie pit. From its vantage, the sheer number of undead was more overwhelming than contemplate. She could scarcely see the ground past the crush of shambling green bodies. Anyone who fell into the pit would land right on top of a zombie. Anyone who fired an arrow below land right on top of a zombie. Anyone who fired an arrow below would be certain to hit one. That's what the boss was doing, firing arrows indiscriminately into the crowd. Bobby watches one arrow lodge into a zombie shoulder. The mob, confused and enraged, lashed out of the empty air, unable to understand where the attack came from. Bobby had no love for zombies, but touring with them like this seemed cruel. She would never expected nothing else from the boy on the balcony. However, she recognized the face as easily as recognized his cruel laughter. It was a stranger who had come to Playtown, the one who had set Hard Oak aflame. What was he doing there? How had he gathered all these zombies? And why was he embracing Ben like an old friend? Ben, he cried, drawing another boy loose. Wow, I never thought I'd see you again. Same here, said Ben. What's new, Logan? Chapter 33. Logan, said Bobby, and she stepped forward, putting herself between her brother and the voice. This is Logan? The stranger, Logan, grinned. I'm guessing Ben here hasn't said nice things about me, but I'm glad to see him again, and it's nice to meet you. So you don't remember me, she said. Seriously? You set my village on fire. Logan chuckled. You have to be more specific, am I right? He said, elbowing Ben. Heh, said Ben weakly. Bobby didn't do it on purpose, but she didn't lose her grip on Johnny's lead. But as he felt her slipping from the ground, she didn't react quickly as she could have. In an instant, Johnny pushed past her and lunged at Logan. The boy shrieked, jumping back, and to Bobby's astonishment, pulling Ben in front of himself like a shield. Ben put his hands out in an attempt to mollify Johnny. Hey, buddy, he said. It's all right. As Johnny approached, Ben eased his hands into Johnny's shoulders, and Bobby's brother calmed down. There, that's it. Logan's a fret. Well, Logan isn't for eating. Ben looked up and lead and then handed over to Bobby. Drop something? He asked as his eyes were accusing. Thanks, Bobby said, accepting the lead in uninvited but heavily implied scolding. Ben was right. That would have been dangerously irresponsible if Logan had gone for a weapon instead of retreating. But how did you do that? Asked Logan. He stepped forward. Johnny growled, and Logan stayed there where he was. You actually train a zombie? He asked, as all in his voice. Nothing of your business, said Bobby. At the time, Ben said, we'll tell you all about it. Ben and Bobby traded glares. We have some questions for you, actually, Bobby said to Logan. All right, that's fair, Logan shrugged. Why don't you two join me for dinner? We'll make a game of it, he grinned. An answer for an answer. We'll take turns. A dining hall was an unaborted space, devoid of color and comfort. There was lanterns for light and furnaces for cooking, and dark windows that were likely provided a scant view of the surrounding landscape during the daylight hours. That's for aesthetic enjoyment. Bobby imagined then for defensive purposes. Everywhere she looked, was she reminded that she was not home, but in a fortress. So who was Logan at war with? You almost got me, you know, said Logan. The old wither rose in the treasure chest chick? That she shook his head and chuckled. I would have seen that coming. Well, you wouldn't have any trouble if you hadn't robbed me while I was sleeping, Ben said, apparently failing to see any humor in it. Logan chuckled again. Guilty as charged, but to be honest, are you mad I took your stuff, or are you mad that I did it before you could do it to me? The first one, Ben said happily. Why would I even think of doing that to you? We were partners. That was the whole issue, said Ben. This world's not made for partners, Ben, and there's too much wealth for grabs. Well, somebody's got to grab it, eventually. Problem with the steak? Bobby realized he belatedly had the question but directed to her. Huh? She said, looking from the table. Your steak. You haven't touched it, said Logan. It wasn't your first question, Bobby asked, and she chortled. Clever, said Logan. But no, I don't actually care. Eat the steak or don't. I promise it isn't zombie meat, though, if that's what you're thinking. You're too valuable for that. Bobby's eyes flitted up to Johnny, who stood across the room where he would keep them in view. She didn't like the idea that her brother had a value in his creep. While it might keep Johnny safe from destruction than he'd otherwise be, it was all too obvious that Bobby had Logan a person willing to steal anything for value he could get his hands on, and he wasn't a very good boss either. When Hatchet and Flip had shown up for dinner, Logan had chased them off, telling them to find themselves for the night. Neither of the mercenaries had liked that. Hatchet had glared at Bobby as if she'd purposely stolen her place, but they hadn't argued, instead sulking off to the fortress interior. The other boy, the younger one, had been in charge of cooking. He had fit into one furnace to another, attempting to prepare all three steaks simultaneously. Bobby had expected he'd been making a fourth meal for himself. Instead, he had immediately begun baking their dessert. He stood at the furnace now, keeping clear of Johnny's range. I'll let you two leave the first question, Logan said, since you guessed that and all. Bobby knew what they precisely wanted to ask. She opened her mouth to speak. Then Ben blurted out, What did you do with all my stuff? Bobby looked at him aghast. Was it really what they needed to learn? Bobby crossed his arms. You know, I had a feeling you wanted it all back, but I might Squire gather it up. Squire? Said Ben. Yeah, sure. Squire, quartermaster, gatekeeper, cook. Ben does a little bit of everything around here. At first, Bobby thought Logan had gotten their names mixed up, but then the boy in the furnace turned around and waved. Hi, he said. I probably should have introduced myself before. I'm Ben. Ben gaped like a fish. Finally, he said, You're not Ben, I'm Ben. The boy, also Ben, other Ben, shrunk a little and said, Sorry. Bobby rolled her eyes. You don't need to apologize for him, she said vehemently. But then Ben's focus was entirely on Logan. You replaced me with another Ben? Logan cackled, nearly amused by no end to this. Bobby could think that Ben's emotional reaction was feeding Logan's desire to push the buttons. Logan liked to see people squirm, didn't he? All right, look, said Logan. I made a mistake. That's what I wanted here. I thought I'd be better off alone, but I was wrong. Being alone without there much work. He leaned back in the chair. When I came across Hatchet and Flip fumbling around the couple of lost, directionless kids, I figured out the solution. Not a partnership, but a gang. And a clear hierarchy. He recruited Ben, too, a little bit after that. Promised to train him, toughen him up in exchange for his services. If Ben, too, objected to the new nickname, he didn't voice it. He would just pointed his chest across the room and said, I'd put all the items you asked for in the chest, sir. He then turned back to his furnace. Go ahead, Ben 1. Logan looked. Your stuff's right over there. Ben 1 gave Logan a long look, as if suspecting some trick, and then he stood and walked over to the chest. He made a show of checking for traps. Finally, content for the chest was safe, he opened the lid and started sorting through the contents. My arrows, he said, and my pickaxe, and it's here. Leaping to his feet, Ben held a gleaming diamond sword to the sky, striking a pose like an action hero. Anthropox, he cried. Scourge of spiders, smiter of silverfish. Bobby was anxious, impatient, and genuinely annoyed, but she found herself smiling at the sight of Ben's joy. Then her eyes kept to Logan, and she noticed how intently he was watching, not just Ben, but Johnny, too. How'd you train him? Asked Logan. The zombie boy. So that's why he had Ben's things ready for him. He wanted a chance to observe what would happen to Ben and got close to Johnny. Bobby had no interest in telling Logan anything, but Ben pressed her. It's only a fair answer, Ben said, and he handed her a diamond pickaxe. I mean, look at that. Quality craftsmanship, he winked. Keep it. I've got all these cool arrows, too. One of these makes you invisible, one that lets you breathe underwater. Not now, Ben, Bobby said. He turned to face Logan. To answer your question, I trained him by treating him like a human being. You know, with love and respect. And lots of patience, she frowned. I sort of doubt that you knew it'd be good at that. Ouch, said Logan. Still sour, the old tree? He pinned on the gaze. Or did something else happen to your precious little village after I left? It's your turn to answer the question, said Bobby. Happy to, Logan said lightly. But let's move this to the roof. You've got to see the view, he smiled. It's positively killer. And that's the end of that. Uh-oh, positively killer. Wonder what that could mean. Positively killer. Ooh, positively killer. But yeah, next time it's going to be the final episode. Which is a little saddening, actually. But yeah, next time we're reading pages 184. 184 to pages 206. Making it actually, no, actually it's still pretty long. 206. Which means we're doing chapter 34 to chapter... Acknowledgements. Of course. Wait, 206. Why do I have it put down for 206? What? No, that's not true. It's not 206. It ends at 203. Oh, my past self doing past math wrong. Ha ha ha. So we're ending it on chapter 37. Why did I want to go to 206? What's up with 206? 206 ends with a thank you to everyone that helped him make the book. Not necessarily anything about the book itself. Alright. So, yeah, it's really no reason to read that part of the book. So, yeah, 37. So, I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. If you like Be Fishing, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Boop. And I'll see you guys next time for a pretty easy read of 19 pages. Bye-bye.